I'd like to call this meeting to order of the council dated May 19th, 2014. Roll call.
Mayor Yanish.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Amon.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Dockin.
Here.
Fagerly.
Here.
DeBleek.
Here.
9 present, 0 absent.
Would you all please stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda? I have one, and that would be the appointment of Mr. Art Benson to the HRA?
EDC.
EDC. Thank you. The EDC board. And we will now approve or accept the consent items.
Move to approve.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the consent items as written.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
one comment on the municipal utilities minutes.
Go ahead.
Ready now? Okay. Just to point out, in the municipal utilities meeting, they had a report of their 2013 financial statement from their auditors. I'd like to, the council aware, point out that within that auditor's report that during 2013, the municipal utilities transferred $1,999,573 in cash to the city of Willmar in lieu of taxes, and they also provided for street lighting services without charge within the city of Willmar, and that was valued at $603,434. So.
And that was for information only?
That is for information only.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Do we have a vote on the consent items
We have a motion.
as written? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That carries. The Willmar City Council Forum, is there anyone scheduled to speak?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bob Score is listed.
Bob Score, would you like to come up with name and address, please?
Bob Score, 617 Southwest 14th Street, Willmar. Mayor, council members, just a couple of questions here. I know it's kind of tough to find some money to fix that gun range, but my real question is, has there been any bids let out for the fixing of the water problem of the auditorium yet? And if not, can we get to it with all the rain we've had so it doesn't multiply that issue anymore? The other one is, yesterday I went to a car show over at the old senior high school, and on 6th Street, where they did the repairs over there, there was no parking the whole way down there. That was kind of an inconvenience for all the spectators and participant extra vehicles. The people had to walk quite a ways, and should have been utilized over there. And I drove down that street again today, and that is like a roller coaster over there. Has a lot of repairs been done on it, and I see they're getting ready to put the final coat on there, and I'm just wondering what's going to happen to that street. Are they going to go over it before? I mean, are they going to do a major repair on there? It looks like a lot of frost boils and stuff that were under there. And then Candy-Y Avenue, I see they're going to get ready to put the final layer of tar on that one. And that one's got all the elevations kind of screwed up on the curbs there. I'm wondering if that's going to be corrected or if it's just going to be let go. That's all I got to say to you guys tonight.
Thank you.
So I won't bother you anymore. Thank you.
Would we be in a position to give Mr. 'Score an answer to his questions at some point?
Yes, sir.
Mr. 'Score, would you like to come up with name and address, please?
Mr. Mayor, council members, just a couple questions here. One,
I think in terms of the auditorium, we are working with Engen to develop those bid packages, and those will be let when they are ready to be done. I could ask Mr. Christensen, the Public Works Director, to comment on the status of 6th Street and the wearing course for that in Candy Ojai Avenue.
Mayor, members of the council, both of those, 6th Street as well as Candy Ojai, are having the repairs, as Mr. Score had mentioned, on that, so that we can do a leveling course or wearing course on top of that. As far as our drainage on Candy Ojai, that was a decision that was made last fall, and some minor repairs were done to get the drainage as good as possible without tearing out the entire street and starting over. The wearing course will actually direct the water to the curb in a better situation than we have right now. And so at this time, we are monitoring that situation. But yeah, the wearing course will be done, and those streets should be completed.
But again, is that curb elevation that's high over there, is that going to stay where it's at? Are you looking at that issue?
Mayor, members of council, that curb elevation will stay where it is now. And we'll have to, if we have to do other minor information or other minor modifications to that at a later date, we'll have to do that then.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Score.
Just one quick question to Charlene. So you're telling me that nothing's been let out or nothing's been repaired so far on gutter problems or water?
Those bid packages are not prepared yet. We're working with Engen Architects
Okay.
to have those done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else scheduled to speak?
Well, you could just ask. There wasn't the last time I looked.
Okay. Is there anyone else scheduled to speak? Hearing none, we'll move into the next one. The Fire Department oath of office. Fire Chief Hendricks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I have the privilege of introducing 3 Willmar firefighters probationary members who have just completed their probationary period with the department. Over the last year, they've completed 130 hours of training, which I feel is significant, which includes firefighter 1, firefighter 2, and hazmat operations. This number in itself may seem insignificant, yet with all the demands each firefighter's personal life, I felt it was important to recognize this accomplishment within a public forum. Each of the firefighters being recognized this evening, on average, have worked 185 hours attending fire calls and an additional 182 hours attending training throughout the year to be operational and effective on an incident. I believe in today's society, this is a sacrifice not on only the firefighter, but also the families of the firefighters. As a firefighter, many birthdays and celebrations are missed as a result of the commitment to the community. Therefore, not only do I want to thank the firefighters themselves, but also their families for the commitment that they make to the community. I'll now administer the oath of office to the firefighters. As I call your name, please go to our designated spot. Andrew Christensen. Jared Rippiger. And Jason Scheffler. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Minnesota and faithfully discharge the duties of the firefighter of the city of Willmar in the county of Candy, Ojai, in the state of Minnesota, to the best of my ability and judgment. So help me God. As a firefighter for the city of Willmar, I accept this oath and hereby dedicate my fire service career to the protection of lives and property. Congratulations. Tonight for Andrew Christensen, as far as the badge pinning, it'll be his mentor, Craig Wasick, pinning the badge on him this evening. I'll be doing Jared this evening. And tonight, Jason's father will be doing his. Gentlemen, thank you. Mayor, council, thank you. Just as a side note, we did have 4. We're down to 3 this time. It's just because of society and how busy everyone's lives are. So this is a dedication to these gentlemen, to the fire department, and the community to get through their training and then all the additional hours that they put in. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. And now, if you want to recognize Jordan Hansen.
Yes. Mayor and members of council, tonight I have the distinguished honor of recognizing Jordan Hansen as an honorary firefighter for the city of Willmar. A little bit of background. Jordan participates in the Focus House. It's a program within public schools that allows students transitional training beyond graduation requirements for students 18 to 21-year-olds from local districts that attend for further skills in home and daily living, pre-vocational schools, rec and leisure skills, and community participation. With the vocational piece comes the opportunity to do 120 hours voluntarily within a place within the community. They learn the basic, students learn basic skills that they'll need to advance in other careers and opportunities. And students also are linked to opportunities based upon their interests and skill level. Jordan was lucky enough and asked to participate at the fire department if he could. We've participated in the program in previous years prior to my arrival last year. Rick Johnson, maintenance gentleman, also was helpful in this endeavor as well. Jordan's time was set up for 120 hours throughout the year initially. After that, his time fundamentally would have ended probably sometime around the December timeframe. A lot of tasks would not have been able to be completed without Jordan's assistance. They may have seemed insignificant, but in the end, it moved things along a lot quicker for us. In the end, Jordan volunteered double the amount of time that he needed to. He put in approximately 240 hours. Therefore, I felt it was something significant, dedication to the community based on his volunteer hours, so I wanted to make sure that we could recognize him in a public forum. So Jordan, if you'd come on up. I'm going to step right here. Just going to switch to this. Jordan, I want to personally thank you from the Willmar Fire Department for your efforts over the past school year. We graciously appreciate it. So does the community of Willmar. In your honor, I put together, this is a real fire helmet that firefighters wear today. It says, honorary member Jordan Hansen, the Willmar Fire Department. So again, thank you very much for your time and dedication. I want to present this to you this evening.
Thank you very much. You should be all proud, very proud of this young man. Thank you. With that, we'll move into the Finance Committee report for May 12th. Councilman Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Finance Committee met on Monday, May 12th, 2014. First item on our agenda was public comment, and there were no comments from the public. Second item had to do with Rice Memorial, March 31st, 2014 financial information, and that was for information only. Bill Fensky, the CFO of Rice Hospital, presented the committee with the March 31st, 2014 financial report. which reflects a year-to-date net operating loss of $2,485,994. The month of March generated a loss of $99,638, which is an improvement from February's net loss of $1,153,480 and January's net loss of $1,232,986. The primary contributing factors of increased outpatient activity helped improve the hospital's financial performance. Our discussions included accounts receivable issues, the shift in payer mix to more governmental sources and less commercial sources, and efforts to recruit more specialized physicians for the hospital, particularly orthopedics. And this was for information only. The next item was the Grothaus land lease request. Staff explained that Dan Grothaus, prior owner of land northwest of the new airport runway, has inquired of various council members whether special bidding criteria could be given to landowners who lost acreage from the eminent domain taking of their land. Mr. Grothaus was present to express his desire to have negotiated rental rates or rights of first refusal after bids are solicited. After considerable discussion, it was a consensus of the committee that there should be no change in how staff conducts the land rental procedure. So that was for information only. Item 5 was increase Lakeland Drive bike path budget. Staff explained that Bill Lathan of William Lathan Appraisals, under contract with the city for $29,500, has concluded the appraisal of the Lakeland Drive Southeast Bike Trail project. Initial permanent and temporary easement values were estimated at $40,500, but the total appraised value returned by Mr. Latham totals $85,450. Consequently, an additional $45,000 needs to be allocated from the Industrial Development Fund in order to complete the project of purchasing the necessary easements. It was noted that the temporary easement deadline is 2 years from the purchase. Subsequently, it was determined that the temporary easements should be purchased in September to allow for 2 construction seasons to complete the project. Following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I would introduce a resolution increasing the Lakeland Drive bike path budget by $45,000 allocated from the Industrial Development Fund to enable completion of the requested easement purchase of the Lakeland Drive Southeast Trail project.
Second. The motion has been made and seconded to increase the budget $45,000 to finish or complete the bike path.
Required easements, the required easements.
The required easements, to purchase the required easements. Is there any discussion? Councilman Nam.
Just obvious curiosity why it doubled. I know some of the information has been presented to us here, but how did we establish the original first $40,500? Or who establishes that?
It was staff's estimate. I think where we made an undernourished effort was the purchasing of the Gesh property on the west side of Lakeland, all the way along from the YMCA north. That was just higher property than we thought it would come out to be. But it's clearly the permanent easement's going to take away farmland, and so it's the same value as purchasing.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion? And that is a resolution, so we will do a roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
Tobleek.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that passes.
The next item was the 2015 proposed budget calendar. Staff reviewed with us the proposed 2015 budget calendar. Mayor Yanish stated that he had no questions or concerns regarding that calendar. So following discussion, there was a motion made, seconded, and passed, and I'll move the recommendation of the committee to approve the 2015 budget calendar as presented.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the proposed budget calendar as presented. Is there any discussion on that? And that would be a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That carries.
Item number 7 was the 2014 street improvement financing. Staff provided the committee a tentative budget calendar for the 2014 street improvement project and reported that there are ongoing discussions with local lending institutions for possible alternatives to the normal bonding procedures for street improvement financing. Preliminary information reflects little additional cost using local financing, which would provide the benefit of utilizing local dollars. It was a consensus of the committee that staff should continue to pursue these local financing alternatives, and that was for information only. Item 8 was ditch maintenance funding. Staff explained to the committee that the city has received invoices for ditch repairs within the city limits in the amount of $156,270.29. In the 2014 budget, we included only $20,000 for these repairs. It's being proposed that the remaining $136,271 be funded through the surface water management budget. These invoice costs being levied are based on the prior year's expenses and are previous to the redetermination of benefits the county ditches dated April 1st, 2014. It was noted that future expenses for routine maintenance and repairs will be considerably less. Councilmember Johnson asked if there's a procedure for objecting to the cost of ditch maintenance, and we also questioned whether or not the city could contest the cost and asked staff to research other funding sources. Following discussion, the committee decided to table this matter, and it will come back to the committee when we have some further information. So that was for information only. Item number 9 was sign reflexivity reallocation. Staff explained that in the 2014 capital improvement program, it includes $25,000 designated for sign retroreflectivity by federal mandate. However, this is considered an annual maintenance and not a capital project that requires fixed asset tracking. Subsequently, it's being requested that these funds be reallocated into the 2014 Public Works Maintenance of Other Improvements operating budget. Following discussion, there was a motion made, second, and passed, and I will introduce a resolution reallocating $25,000 from the capital improvements budget to the 2014 Public Works of Other Improvements operating budget for sign retroreflectivity maintenance.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve the $25,000 designated for the sign retroactive reflectability by federal mandate. All those in favor say aye. Or
It's a resolution.
No, discussion first, I'm sorry. All those in favor say.
It's a resolution.
Resolution. That's,
Councilmember Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
that carries.
There was no old business and there was no new business, so unless there's questions, I'd move to file the minutes.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to file the minutes of the Finance Committee report for May 12, 2014. Is there any discussion? Councilman
Question.
Ahmed.
Just one comment or thought on the minutes of the, or your financial report of the Rice Memorial Hospital. I don't know how to say this discreetly or delicately, but of course there's concern in the whole health industry in the United States and what's happening with hospitals and throughout our community, and especially our pride and joy, Rice Memorial Hospital, which I'm sure we're all very proud of. Concerns, of course, are the operation of the hospital for the benefit of the people in the community and providing a good service. Also, when I look at the financial report, it's shocking, but not shocking compared to other communities too. I understand that there's other hospitals that are suffering some financial financial strains, I guess I can gently put it, that hopefully will be short-term and we'll be able to combat them. I have had people in the community ask me about that. And I just wonder if it's possible if maybe we could get a little more in-depth information or if we could maybe, some of us, maybe the mayor and the head of the finance and our city administrator, just maybe briefly talk with, or have a general discussion on the long-term impact and how we're going to ride this out with the change in the healthcare industry nationwide. And I guess maybe solidify some of the discernment that I hear from the community about the negative cash flow we have coming into our hospital right now. And I guess I'd just like to put that fire out. And I think we're strong. I think we have a lot of great things going for our hospital, but I don't want people to start thinking that we're in dire straits and of need or reform at our hospital. But I think informing the public is very, very important, because it is their hospital. It is our community's hospital. And those are just some concerns I've had from other people and myself too. And if that could be expressed somehow, or if we could maybe get an update or a review on that to talk about it, I guess I'd be interested in listening or getting any kind of report from the hospital board and the director.
Is it possible to do that for the finance committee?
I think we can arrange a meeting with Mr. Schramm. I just wanted to make a comment, and you're right on a number of points. And Mr. Schramm pointed out that he had been at a conference here this spring, and he said he didn't talk to a hospital there that was in good shape.
Right.
So we're not unique, but they're not. The hospital is also not sitting back and just waiting. They have a great program for trying to cut back expenses. They do as best that they can, and they're working really hard to get more orthopedics people. But we can certainly arrange something where the city administrator and I sit down with him and give a report of some sort.
Just a proactive response.
We can do that.
I would appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Councilman Dockin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add to what Dennis just said. The Rice Memorial Hospital Board is very aware. They're on top of this. The thing that is, one of the many things that affects us is called payer mix. There are a lot of folks my age and older that are on Medicare, okay? Medicare does not pay as well as private health insurance. And you have a number of people who are on Medicaid. I think the mix is something like 6 out of 10 that come through the hospital are either Medicare or Medicaid, and the remainder typically is the private health insurance, and that is a difficult thing to handle. They've been on top of watching the daily census, and they don't staff any higher than they have to. That's not good for morale when you're cutting back hours, and so. But it's not just Rice Memorial Hospital that's facing this dilemma. It's just about every hospital, not only in Minnesota, but throughout the United States, because reimbursement is the name of the game.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
I apologize, Jim. I should have included you in that conversation, because Jim is liaison for the city council. I'm sorry, Jim, for not recognizing that meeting or discussion. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries. We have the Public Works Safety Committee report for May 13th, 2014. Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did call the meeting to order, and there was no public comments. Item number 3 on our agenda was a contract number 1301-A, which was a change order number 1. This is a motion. Our staff presented a recommendation to approve contract number 1301-A, change order number 1. The project was awarded to Dunnick on May 9th, 2013 for the street improvements to Canyon Avenue Southwest from 1st Street to 7th Street Southwest and 11th Street to 15th Street Southwest. Staff noted minor extra work was required to correct grade and drainage problems, and change order number 1 is in the amount of $10,875.60. That amount was negotiated with the contractor to address the added work. Project funding was discussed with the committee, noting the design engineer has agreed to pay additional contract costs for completing the work. The committee questioned if the work solved the grade and drainage problems and asked staff to further look into it. After some discussion with our city engineer, a motion was made seconded and passed for the following, and that is to table contract number 1301-A, change order number 1. And I will introduce that motion.
Second.
We really don't need a motion from a subcommittee that tabled it.
Okay,
It didn't make it to the council.
okay.
Thank you.
And I will move on with items number 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I will read items 4, 6, and 8, and they all can be made under one motion, as with 5, 7, and 9. So I will read 4, 6, and 8. They all have to do with declaring costs to be assessed and order the assessment roll for project number 1401, which is number 4. Again, the committee reviewed a summary of their bids opened for the Gorton Avenue Northwest and 9th Street Northwest improvements, city project number 1401. At this time, the council is required to declare the cost to be assessed in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 429 State of Minnesota statutes. Staff is recommending the improvements based on bid alternate B using bituminous surfacing. Same for item number 6. The cost to be declared were for the bids open for 12th Street Southeast improvements, city project number 1404. Again, under Chapter 429 of the State of Minnesota statutes. Item number 8, declare cost to be assessed and order assessment roll for project number 1403. This had to do with the 23rd Street Southwest, 10th Street Southwest, 9th Street, 7th Street Southeast, and 25th Street Southeast improvements, project number 1403. Again, under Chapter 429 of the State of Minnesota statutes. I will make a motion, move the resolution for all 3 of those to declare the costs to be assessed and order assessment rolls for 1404, 1403, and 1401.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Could you read that back to us, Kevin?
The resolution is to declare costs to be assessed and order the preparation of the assessment roll in connection with the 2014 street and other improvements, project numbers 1401, 1403, and 1404.
A roll call.
Councilmember Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
Along with the declaring of the cost to be assessed and ordering assessment roll, we need to call for an assessment hearing for these 3 projects. So I will move the resolution to call for an assessment hearing for project number 1401, 1403, and 1404. The date of that, Kevin, is
June 16.
June 16th.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Would you like to read that one back to us, Kevin?
We're calling for hearing on the assessments for projects number 1401, 1403, and 1404, 2014 street and other improvements.
Thank you. Roll call. Is there any discussion, first of all? Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on the hearing on the assessments. And would that be the time if somebody wanted to, like the 9th Street people wanted their street to be, considered maybe taken off the list, that would be the time, correct?
Well, that would certainly be one time. If you have your mind made up on that street, tonight would also be a time. But we can go ahead and carry out the work and notify the people and make a decision.
Mm-hmm. But it would be appropriate at that time also because in the assessments, the hearing's going to determine what the costs are per foot and.
Yeah, that is correct. It would also be appropriate at that time.
Okay. That was the
At a
only-
general statement, you will adopt the assessment roll after the hearing. The assessment roll is for all the projects, and if that one's in or out, that would be made that night.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? And that is a roll call.
Councilmember Nelson.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
The 10th item had to do with a request for a private archery range. The committee reviewed staff's request for approval of a permit application allowing construction/use of a private archery range design as illustrated on the application. The permit was received by Chief Weifels and approved for Jody Freiberg, residing at 508 Northwest 34th Street. After some discussion, the motion is made, seconded, and passed to approve the request, and I will introduce that motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by, to authorize a private archery range permit request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion carries.
Item number 11 had to do with old business. Our chief, Dave Weifels, noted that the jail census on May 14th was at 97, and that calls for service for the previous 2 weeks were totaled at 614, which was rather normal. Item number 12, new business, project number 1408. This is a resolution. It was presented to us by our engineer, Mr. Sean Christensen. He presented a recommendation to award the 2014 seal coating project number 1408 contract to one Caldwell Asphalt Company Incorporated in the amount of $23,365.85, and authorize the mayor and city administrator to execute the agreement on behalf of the city. After some discussion, a motion was made and passed to the following. And I will introduce the resolution awarding the contract for the 2014 seal coating project number 1408 to Caldwell Asphalt Company Incorporated in the amount of $23,365.85.
Second.
The motion was made and seconded that the contract be awarded for the 2014 seal coating project number 1408 to Caldwell Asphalt Company Incorporated in the amount of $23,365.85. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Dockin.
Aye.
Fagerly.
Aye.
DeBleek.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Christensen.
Aye.
Amon.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
8 ayes, 0 nays.
And that carries.
There was no further business to come before the committee, and with that, I would move to file these minutes.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to file the minutes of the Public Works Safety Committee report for May 13th, 2014. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That carries. Is there any old business to talk about? Councilman
Johnson. Mr. Mayor, thank you. We had another discussion at the community development hearing with Mr. Grothus, the gentleman who farms some acreage right northwest of our runway, which we previously condemned. He basically has, from what I could see from the drawings that staff had, about 3 separate parcels, and it's the middle parcel that we condemn part of it for future runway expansion, which at this point we don't know when that may or may not occur for the airport. And this gentleman's concern is that the piece that we took kind of divides the other 2 pieces that he used to farm all 3 of them together. He'd like to have a negotiated lease or a right of first refusal. I think based on the discussions that I've had with Mr. Halliday, who handles that for the city, and the discussions that took place at the committee, that a right of first refusal wouldn't work real well. I mean, he just wouldn't get any bids, and that would not be practical. But it would seem to me that, I guess I'd like to have some discussion this evening about the possibility of a negotiated lease for this gentleman. The committee wasn't in favor of that, but to me, it's kind of a fundamental fairness question. This man, we took his land and we're not using it for the purpose that we took it for. And then he has to bid competitively to farm it, and it interferes with or makes it inconvenience to farm the 2 parcels he's got left, because they're no longer, I don't believe, perfect rectangles. So it requires some additional maneuvering of his equipment, I believe. He didn't specifically complain about that, but I would like to see us consider having staff negotiate the lease with them and do it at least, I would suggest 4 months before they would normally advertise for bids. The concept or the idea being that if the lease couldn't be negotiated, then it would go up for bids. So,
Thank you. How shall we handle that?
well, I'm just wondering what the rest of the council feels. I mean, the committee wanted to leave it the way it was, but I don't think our discussion was totally negative, and I just felt that it was worth consideration by the entire council.
Councilman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I think when we talk about fundamental fairness, we need to remember a couple things here. That land was taken under eminent domain and was paid fair market value. Taxpayers paid fair market value for that land. Now, on down the road, we're looking to rent that. It would seem to me that the taxpayers should get fair market value for the land. And we don't know necessarily what that fair market value would be unless we bid it. And I don't know how to average that farmland and come up with a fair price, because we all know all land is different, and it's all going to have a different value in terms of how it's going to yield. It seems to me that the fairest, the best, the most democratic way, and the way that our world works is you put it out for bids. And if it's very valuable to this individual, then he has to take that into consideration when he's bidding it. So I firmly believe that we need to stay with the process as we have it right now.
Councilman Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand your concerns, Dennis, and for wanting to leave it the way it is. However, I too have spoken to this individual a couple times, and a lot of the general public looks at government as not being fair. I mean, they aren't fair to me. They tax me to death.
That's fair.
I think out of genuine fairness, this guy should have first shot at this, or the shot at it. And, you know, we took the land in eminent domain. We took it off the tax rolls of the county, right? The city doesn't pay property taxes on it. Is that correct?
No, we do pay property
we do?
tax once we put it into a productive arrangement.
Then you have to.
Then we pay.
Okay, I assume that since the government owned it, we didn't. But I sympathize with the gentleman, and we're not talking of a horrendous amount of money here. And if we were talking of, you know, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 or more difference from bidding it out to letting this gentleman do it on a fair, more fair process, then we could maybe discuss it, or not discuss it. We would leave it at that. But it's a small acreage, and yeah, I think the council should consider letting this gentleman contracted from the city on a fair rate. What a fair rate is, I think Mr. Halliday could come up with that.
Councilman Hammond?
A couple of questions for our attorney. As far legally, as far as are we bound statutorily as far as how we go through this process, or is that at full discretion of the council? Can we set our own rules?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Amon, there is no requirement legally that the city competitively bid these types of leases. The city does have the legal authority to negotiate directly with property owners. That's the short answer to your question.
Okay, thank you. And if we were to consider this, does that affect either Kevin or Charlene or staff? How would this affect any other land that we're currently renting to any other group? How much other land are we putting out on annual bids or?
I forgot.
There are quite a few.
If you're not setting a policy,
Okay.
since you chose in this conversation here, hey, Councilmember Johnson, no first right of refusal. If the policy was to give them a first right of refusal to the person that you took the land from in eminent domain, I'd probably have 9 phone calls.
Right.
Because everybody lost some of the land in eminent domain.
Sure.
That's not the policy. If it's just to negotiate one of them, it's possible, and this is, I can't even remember, is this a 60-acre parcel?
I can't
Or
remember.
30 acre?
68 acres. I believe.
68 acres.
But I think it also doesn't preclude other property owners that we are bidding the land, other property owners coming and requesting the same thing. So it's difficult to say if it could impact the other properties or not, because, I mean, certainly there may be others that we are requiring to bid on the property that may come to us and say, can you negotiate a sale with me as you've done it with another property owner? It's always the risk, but the council can make that decision.
Well, I think, we want to be fair with everybody, whether it's one taxpayer or 100, we want to treat them all the same, I guess, and that's my concern. I don't mind discussing it, and I know he came to the Public Works Committee before, and I can understand some of his concerns as far as efficiencies of operations to have that land all tillable with one owner for the purpose of crop rotation and who knows what else. But I guess my biggest concern is that this may be kind of an unusual situation, but I'm not sure because I don't know how many parcels we have that we've taken land out of, you might say, the center of that larger parcel, which limits his ability to farm the entire thing. And if there's other situations like that that we currently have under the sealed bid process that might, give this person special treatment, and that's what I don't want to have. If there's other people in the area that we're renting to or through the sealed bid process that you might raise a stink about it, you might say, because we're doing it just for him. But if this is kind of a unique situation where the land is owned on each side and it's different than the right-of-way land or the alfalfa land that they're growing adjacent to the runway, I think it warrants more discussion. I'd like to see if it's possible.
Just to clarify, it's a 68 acres that
Right.
that you're discussing. And I believe there are 8 tracts of land, and then there are additional 5 other right-of-ways that we are bidding out.
Okay.
So about 13 bids are being done.
13 bids, okay.
Is that correct? Does that sound correct,
Maybe
Mr.
less. It seems like it's less than
A little
that.
less.
But
That's pretty close, that's within.
Yeah, I think that's pretty close to it.
Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, I would add, and just to supplement or to respond to Councilmember Ammon's concerns, that when the land was condemned for this future possible expansion of the airport, numerous landowners were affected, and the process it was litigated with several of the people and went through the full process, if you will, including litigation. And some of the people did reserve a right of first refusal to lease their taken land back. So we do have a few people that did negotiate that, others did not. So there are different, everybody's not being treated the same, frankly.
Just,
Go ahead.
just a question. The item you're referring to, was that not part of the negotiation of the price of the land? Were there not appraisals done to establish the value for the land and this procedure established during that time?
That's the normal process for eminent domain, you're correct.
Correct.
Some negotiated it, some did not.
So that would apply probably to other parcels besides this one?
I don't
correct?
know if it affected the awards that were eventually given to the various property owners. I don't know that.
So how were the appraisals done how was the value established at that time? By appraisals?
Yeah, normally they'd be appraised, so, yeah. Not a whole lot different than what we've done with the bike path.
Go ahead.
I can speak in general to the process for handling eminent domain cases like this, although I haven't reviewed the specific settlements with various property owners in this case. Typically, I think what happened in this condemnation over many years back was the city would have had its own appraisal conducted and would have paid that amount as a baseline, and then there'd have been each property owner would have had the opportunity to have their own appraisal done, which typically comes in higher, which isn't surprising. And then there's a contested hearing that's litigated. And my understanding, I think, is that these properties ultimately, the city entered into settlement agreements with the property owners. So in theory, I mean, whatever was negotiated by any given property owner would be what they are agreeing, they're accepting as just compensation, the fair market value for the city's taking. And whether that was just a dollar amount or a dollar amount plus some other arrangements and concessions such as a right of first refusal over given land, I mean, in any given case, the property owner would have made that decision and ultimately approved the settlement, just as the city did. It's my final comment and follow-up to the question Councilmember Amon originally asked me. The city has acquired this property and has paid fair market value for it as determined in the condemnation process. So the only concern would be, I mean, you have the authority to lease that land back to anybody through a competitive bidding process or through direct negotiation with anybody. The only concern there is that you do so for fair market value. Otherwise, it could be seen as an expenditure in essence that wouldn't have a public purpose for it, because there'd be no governmental interest in subsidizing the farming of that land at less than market value. So there's a number of different ways to go about it, but that would be the only legal concern with how you'd arrange a lease.
Thank you.
Councilman DeBlee?
Yeah, I don't know what the Finance Committee is actually doing here, saying that there should be no change to the current policy, but if that's the exact direction we should be taking here or not. But I believe this gentleman has a meeting set up with staff sometime next week to discuss some drainage and water issues on property on the east side of the airport. Maybe after that discussion with him, could bring back something else that if there's any type of a work with him on some of those drainage issues that are there at the airport, as well as that we're crossing his property. So after the meeting next week, maybe you could bring us back some more information on the whole issue there.
Yeah, I mean, we are meeting with the property owner on a drainage matter. It's not necessarily tied to this lease and such. I mean, the direction from the Finance Committee was to continue to bid the leases, and I guess that's what the discussion you're having now, whether that is still the direction or if you, as a council, want to provide different direction with this property or other properties. But the direction of the Finance Committee was to continue to bid the properties as we have been doing the last 4 years.
Councilman Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We talk about fairness and fairness to this individual, but I think we also have to be fair to the taxpayers. They need to get the best return that we can on that land. Now, admittedly, it's not a big dollar amount, but it's the process, and it's what we're saying. We need to maximize the dollars that we can get, and we try to always be careful on the dollars that we spend. I just don't know why it's not fair to do it on an open market. I understand that maybe he's got landlocked and there's some other landowners out there that negotiated something different at the time that the eminent domain proceedings went through. He didn't, for whatever was the reason. But it's a fairness issue, and it's maximizing the return that the city can get. So I still think that the bidding process, open bids, are the best way to do this.
Councilman?
My only response, Councilmember Anderson, would be that, as the city attorney has indicated, the negotiations, we have to lease it at fair market value. And I would assume that that's going to be very close to what any bidding amount might be more. I don't know. So there's no intent here to shortchange the revenue side of this equation. It's just a matter of listen to what the man has to say, and if he can negotiate a favorable lease at a fair market rate, I don't see where that hurts the taxpayer or the city.
Councilman Fagerly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. he still has a chance to farm it. He just has to put in the highest bid. Now, he lost out 4 years ago, but he ended up renting it back from the guy who won the bid. So he comes to the meeting and says he has a vested interest. Well, it's like going to an auction. If you want something bad enough, you're going to pay a little bit more. And he admitted he made a mistake when he filled out the form.
I understand that, yeah.
And in negotiations for the land, he said he had the same attorney as the other party, and that attorney negotiated a settlement with the city that they could farm the land. He thought he was getting the same deal, and that's not our fault that he didn't know what his attorney was doing.
My understanding was he dropped out of that litigation and settled early, but I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
I'm not sure either, but
But I understand, I don't dispute, we've talked about all this. But we are, on the other hand, the city condemned his land for a purpose that it's not even on the drawing boards right now.
Yeah, but he still has a chance to farm it. He just has to be the highest
understand.
bidder. So,
I would like to say that I agree with our Councilman Christensen in the fact that what's wrong with a little compassion? We haven't had that in our city in a long time, so to speak. Right or wrong, sometimes we have to give in, and I think now is one of those times. Enough said. What do we do? Do we take a vote on this, or what do we?
There's no motion.
There's no motion.
No motion.
Made or seconded, Mr. Mayor. I just raised it for discussion. I thought it was,
We will go into, is there any further business under old business? Councilman Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just curious as to, are we being updated at all on the wind turbine that's damaged out there, and is it going to fall under the warranty that we purchased on it?
I don't have the information this evening. I can ask Mr. Hump that from the utilities and send you an update tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any further old business? Do we have any new business?
I was going to say with the wind turbine, I know the parts for it, the repair of it are on order, but I don't have an exact answer for whether it's warranty or if it's our dime.
Thank you. We are now on new business. Do we have any new business to transact? I would like to say a word to Chief Weifels, being this is your last council meeting. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it very much. And I would just like to recognize the fact that this is your last council meeting and that you will be retiring May 31st. Am I right?
Mr. Mayor, if you would like, I can approach the council. I do have something prepared to let you know where the department sits.
Please do.
Retirement. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the Willmar Police Department is a solid and well-functioning organization. Upon my retirement, you'll find the following. For equipment, our department equipment, the more expensive items such as portable breath testing devices, recorders, tasers, tint meters, radar, LiDAR units, cameras, firearms, radios, etc., are all up to date and well maintained. I foresee no expected additional repair costs for the rest of the year for this equipment. Excuse me, I had a tickle in my throat back there. Looking forward into the foreseeable future, 3 to 5 years, I see no need to replace any of the mentioned equipment. However, approximately 2 years, 3 years from now, our squad car camera system will need to be replaced in all the marked units, and that's at an estimated $45,000 to $48,000 for the total project cost. We are currently doing repairs as necessary while waiting for possible merging of technology between body cams, which are worn by an officer, and the cameras that you find on the dashes in our squad cars. This may or may not happen, but for right now, it's the most logical and economical approach until such time as squad car cameras can be directly addressed. We have only been spending an average of $800 per year on repair for the squad car camera systems now, and at $4,500 a pop, we don't feel that it's necessary to replace them. As far as squads are concerned, our department vehicles are also in great shape, and we've reached a point where we can easily follow the council's vehicle replacement schedule that's currently in place. Simply following that plan of replacement will allow this agency to maintain a sound fleet. On our budget, our department budget is 3.19% under the normal budgetary expenditures for the year thus far. This figure represents good budget management and does not reflect any practice of delayed responses to necessary purchases. It takes into account all purchases made to date along with consideration of any monthly, quarterly, or yearly scheduled payments such as equipment rentals, bond payments, and other contracted services. Additionally, it includes some purchases that would normally have been made later this year, but were made earlier, recognizing the upcoming departmental transition and being cognizant of trying to reduce any difficulties a new department head might encounter when coming on board. Staff, I'm currently working on replenishing our expected May 31st staffing deficiencies. I should have the entry-level officer hiring process completed to a point where the city is ready to make an offer to acceptable applicants just prior to my leave. I anticipate the hiring of 2 new officers at that time, and depending on what happens with my replacement will determine whether or not the 3rd applicant is pulled from the same hiring list. The promotional process for the upcoming sergeant vacancy has been completed. The top candidate for the promotional process will be identified and offered the promotion after a meeting with the police commission tomorrow night. All other staff are fully trained in their current respective areas. I expect that the level of training to continue as needed. If you've been following the news over the past few days, you can see that activity is starting to ramp up for the summer. But I believe under the right guidance and direction, the Willmar Police Department is certainly capable of handling the job. I am proud of the men and women I work with, and I feel privileged to have had the opportunity to work among such professionals. And I'm open to answering any questions that the council might have.
Well, I, for one, am going to miss you, Chief. And thank you very much for all you've done for me and the help that you've given to me as mayor.
You're welcome.
And I think maybe some of the council people will say the same thing, that you've been a big help to them.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Yanis,
Good luck.
is it possible just for our minutes to reflect our thank you to Chief Weifels and to ask that his report be put in as part of the minutes?
Absolutely.
Thank
Let's do
you.
that.
Okay. I'll forward that to Charlene.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much. With that, we will set the hearing date for the annual stormwater meeting. Who wishes to speak on that?
Character back there.
Okay, the character back there.
Mr. Christensen? Sean?
Mayor, members of the council, the annual stormwater meeting hearing date will be June 16th, along with the other hearings that we have set earlier tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move we set the date for June 16th, 2014.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to set the hearing date for the annual stormwater meeting for June 16th. Is there any discussion? That would be a motion.
Yes.
Do I hear a
Yes.
motion?
Yes,
You got it.
there's a motion and a second.
And a second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That motion carries. We will announce the council meeting dates. Finance, Councilman Anderson.
Finance Committee will not meet.
Public Works, Councilman Christensen.
Tuesday, May 27, 2014, 4:45 PM.
4:45. Councilman Amon with Labor.
Tentatively, Labor 4:45, Wednesday, the 28th. May.
Councilman Fagerly, Community Development.
Thursday, the 29th, 4:45.
4:45. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
One thing, if I might, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We just heard from the chief. We do have another officer that will be retiring, Sergeant Osmus, and there's going to be an open house for those two police officers, and that will be Friday, May 30th, from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Emergency Operations Center out at the police station out there. So an open house for those.
Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
to adjourn? Yes, go ahead.
Just like to remind the council that 2040 website is up and it's operational. If you check the calendar on the 2040 website, you can find meeting times, places, and locations of 2040 meetings that are going on. And also, there will be minutes of those meetings placed on that website as well, so.
Kevin? Any further discussion?
No, just comment. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. We are adjourned.